What happened to Minecraft's ancient builders? There have been many theories on what really happened to them. I do agree with parts of some of those theories, but I believe there's even more. In this video, I'm going to be going to explore the story of the ancient builders and what caused them to disappear off the face of Minecraft. For me to construct my theory, I need to analyze all the structures. The first thing that caught my eye is the fact that pyramids in real life are used for housing tombs. Even more interesting is that while writing this script I was playing a mobile game and the artifact I had looked exactly like the symbol on the desert pyramid, and after some Google searches I found out that it symbolizes eternal life. This could become really helpful for my theory. Another thing is in real life igloos are actually built as temporary shelter, but well-built ones can be semi-permanent. Nothing special there until you look at the igloos in Minecraft. Sometimes underneath them you can find a room where you can find what looks like a place where they were trying to cure zombie villagers or zombify them. The interesting thing is that the arrows in the room point both ways as if they were trying to both learn how to cure and zombify, which is even more helpful information. Then there are also zombie villages. Villages that spawn as either ghost towns or full of zombie villagers. The ghost towns long since infected, and the ones full of zombie villagers so recent that they are still mostly in their houses. Almost as if it hasn't even been one night since they were infected. Almost as if they still haven't had the chance to leave their houses under cover of night. And then let's look at a stronghold. In almost every stronghold, you can find what appears to be prison cells. Prison cells that maybe, just maybe, could have been used to hold those who have been infected. You can probably tell where this is going. I've come to the same conclusion that many Minecraft theorists have. A plague wiped through a lot of Minecraft. This, however, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Anyways, back to the structures, specifically the Nether Fortress. After a Google search, I have discovered the meaning of the word fortress. A fortress is a military stronghold, especially a strongly fortified town fit for a large garrison. To any of you that would like me to speak English now, I will translate. A fortress is a heavily protected area with troops stationed to defend it. Apply this to Minecraft's nether fortresses, and suddenly the seemingly endless chambers, balconies, and pathways make more sense. Except, what is it protecting? How can it be a fortress if there is nothing to protect? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't line up. Except it does. Netherwort. Netherwort is only found in nether fortresses. And blaze rods too. It's physically impossible to get blaze rods without a nether fortress. Both necessary ingredients in potion making. And guess what you need in order to cure zombie villagers? Potions. Nether fortresses conveniently hold the last sources of blaze rods and netherwort. That is why they're fortresses. To protect what is possibly the last chance at curing the infection. Except there's one more problem. What could they possibly be protecting the resources from? They were built to have room for troops, to fight off something. Something big. Something that caused the wrecked edges of some of the pathways to be just that. Wrecked. It couldn't be just the infection. No. Something far more dangerous must have existed. And we'll come back to that later. There's one more structure I wish to investigate. The ancient cities. One of Minecraft's newest structures. The main questions about ancient cities are where did the warden come from, and what is the large portal-like structure in the center of the city? And according to one detail, I think the structure in the center is either a portal or a statue of a portal. I think this because in ancient cities you can find a very tiny structure, and its file name used to be called small_portal_statue.nbt. Small portal statue. However, they did eventually change it to just small statue. There are two ways to interpret this. This could mean that it is a statue of a portal, or it could be a small version of the portal statue. There is a good chance that the structure in the center is not a portal, but a statue of a portal, but that wouldn't make sense, because if the warden came from that portal, then and the real portal isn't in the ancient cities, how come the warden is in the ancient cities? That doesn't line up. So it'd make more sense for that structure in the center to be the real portal. We'll come back to this later. It is a common theory that the Enderman and the End are just the last of the surviving builders. Credit goes to Weefies for this next bit. When the portal to the End was created, people went through, not knowing it was a one-way trip. Once there, the only food they had was chorus fruit. They used their only blocks to bridge to the Outer End Islands, where they used all their available resources to build cities. But eventually, the chorus fruits got to them. Their skin became oily and black, they gained the same magical powers that the chorus fruit gave them, and then the endermites that occasionally spawned got to them. The little parasites caused the endermen to create pearls. There are problems with this theory. What happened to the bridge that they used to get to the Outer Islands? And how could they make an end portal if ender pearls didn't exist yet? There were no endermen, so how could they possibly get Eyes of Ender? And this is the same problem as the portal structure in the center. How could they create a portal if the very blocks and items used don't exist? Except they did exist. There were many things the ancient builders were able to make that we can't. Saddles, horse armor, enchanted golden apples, music discs. So why not the end portal frames? Why not the reinforced deep slate in ancient cities? Except there still is a problem. The Eyes of Ender. There already is a crafting recipe for them, so there shouldn't have been another. But of course, there is a way. Think of the crafting recipe for furnaces. You craft them with 8 cobblestone. But you can also craft them with blackstone. Same with stone tools. So it is very possible that there could have been a stand-in for ender pearls. But before ender pearls existed, there must have been a way. Otherwise, this theory would collapse. Now, using all this knowledge, we will construct the story of Minecraft. The story of how our Minecraft worlds came to be. Please take note that the evidence previously could be interpreted in many ways. This is just the story I wish to believe. Some of the things I mention up ahead are also different from what I was thinking earlier, because I have changed my mind on some things. Also, sadly, I won't be solving any lore that happened before the ancient builders, so I won't be solving the fossils today, but it's something for me to consider in the future. Also, I've been writing the script over several days, so if you'd please consider subscribing, it would mean a lot. And it's completely free on your end, and you can always undo it by just a click of a button. But let's get into this. The first villagers spawn. There aren't many, only a few dozen, but in the days to come, they started learning. They started punching down trees and collecting cobblestone. They were strong, that's for sure, but even more than that, they were smart. They discovered how to craft. They came together, crafting new things every day. Eventually, they learned how to build as well. They constructed villages, more and more popping up every day. In the months to come, they discovered precious resources like iron, obsidian, and even diamonds, all of which they stored in their village chests. The population had grown to hundreds, if not thousands. They had built mine shafts and jungle temples. Very rarely someone was rich enough to even afford an entire mansion built for them. However, nothing is perfect, and nothing lasts forever. Eventually, some villages didn't agree with others. Some villages declared war. This was the first time in the history of Minecraft that weapons and armor were crafted. They geared up. They crafted horse armor and saddles for horses, something that not even we can make. They were already very advanced. And as the population increased, more and more villages were created, each with their own farms to sustain everyone. Back to the villages having war. It was intense. More and more villages fought with each other. Villagers learned how to create iron golems to protect themselves from attackers. Eventually, villages started burning down. Any villagers that got caught in the flames had their skin become burnt and gray. Not dead, not alive, and angry. These burnt villagers needed places to stay. They built outposts, and they pillaged mansions when they could. And they experimented. They wanted to create something to destroy the villages that had made them who they are now. They would make them pay. They remembered how they had learned to make iron golems. They had basically created life, but it was too basic. It was robotic. They needed something alive. And eventually, they got exactly what they wished for. They found a way to create a plague. A plague that would infect villagers. They wouldn't die, but they would still be far from alive. And then they released the plague. They also added it to spawners underground, which they had discovered how to craft. The spawners would harness the plague and spit it out infinitely. The outposts would go out and steal as many iron golems as they could and lock them up. From there, time seemed to stop. The villagers' population froze in place. They were being infected just as fast, if not faster, than they could reproduce. No one left their village anymore. They forgot basic things. They forgot how to craft, how to mine, how to build. And it was like this for a long time, until a new species spawned. One destined to be more successful. They didn't have long noses, and they weren't bald. They advanced quickly. After a few years, they created desert pyramids. They buried infected villagers inside and engraved the symbol of life on the outside. They wished for some way to cure the infected, but they had no idea how. They created boats to travel long distances, and then they did something that changed the history of Minecraft forever. They discovered interdimensional travel. They found a way to go to the Nether. They built Nether portals all over the world, and the best part was the Nether was safe from the plague. They brought livestock in so they would have food. Pigs, hundreds of pigs, thousands of pigs from all over the world were transported through Nether portals. What they didn't consider is that some of those pigs could bring the plague with them. The pigs proceeded to zombify. The pigs that didn't weren't approached in fear of being infected. They had learned previously that it wasn't just villagers that could be infected, they could too. But aside from this, all was calm. For a long time, until one person decided to study soul sand. And eventually, they too figured out how to make life. But they didn't think it would go as wrong as it did. They spawned colossal withers. They instantly annihilated anyone in the area when they were spawned, including the ones who created them. They went on a rampage. Everyone still alive went to the Nether. Almost everyone in the overworld was destroyed over the coming years. Those in the Nether constructed fortresses. In case the colossal withers ever made it to the Nether, they needed to be ready. It was in these fortresses that they discovered another use for soul sand: nether wart. Soul sand could bring many more things to life than they thought. Aside from nether wart, they also learned how to create blazes. Using the same spawner-making trick that the pillagers had used so long ago, they created blaze spawners. Using blaze powder and nether wart, they figured out how to make potions, and with lots of trial and error, they made a cure. However, it still wasn't strong enough to work on their own species, but it was a start. Brave adventurers went back to the overworld and hid igloos in snow biomes. They blended in, so hopefully the withers wouldn't spot them. For extra protection, they went underground. They experimented with not only the cure, but the plague. They mastered how curing and infecting worked. At the same time, other adventurers were sent on missions to destroy as many of the nether portals as they could, hopefully sealing off any ways that the colossal withers could get in. At the fortresses, they were still experimenting on a cure for themselves. They were so close they could feel it, but it was too late. The withers had made it to the Nether through the few large portals that existed. The fortresses didn't withstand the withers' blasts. It turned out to be a terrible fortress. The withers turned everyone there into wither skeletons. Any that survived went back to the overworld. But let's back up a bit. When the withers were still in the overworld, a few came together to try to discover a new dimension. One possibly even better than the overworld. If they didn't come back out, the ones still in the overworld would seal it off. They entered the new dimension, only to meet their end. The portals were sealed as they had never returned. They built out to the outer islands, and in the years to come, they had built cities and stored gear. But years of eating chorus fruit not only transformed their mind, but also their body. Their skin became oily and black. The oil on their skin was the only thing keeping them from shriveling up. Even water was enough to wash away the oil and hurt them. But back to the overworld. The withers were now in the Nether, and the last survivors were hiding underground in the overworld. The ones that had seen the withers told the others how many there were, and they built an underground city for each one. In the center of each city, they worked on their comeback. They created giant structures for teleporting a colossal wither. Not spawning one, but fetching one. And they also experimented on another thing, the Warden. Powered by freed soul sand souls, it seemed almost alive. But sadly, it was hostile to everything. But it would have to do. It was time. They activated the giant structure in the center, and they summoned the Wardens. Each city did this. The builders watched as the giant wither towered over the Warden. It wasn't enough, they needed more. So they summoned more. Eventually they did it. The withers were defeated. The last of the ancient builders, the only ones alive, had done it. They cheered, but this was their final mistake. The Wardens had heard and proceeded to wipe the final ancient builders off the face of the earth. How do we know this? Disc 5. They recorded Disc 5 as they wiped the withers away. So was that it? No. The spawning of the wither was the beginning, but we aren't quite to the end. For the Enderman trapped in the end, the story wasn't over. That's where you come in. You spawn in with the goal of freeing the end. Free them from the dragon that is keeping them there. Except why free them? They try to kill you even if you look at them, so what's the big deal? And why are they so angry? Well, it's because you're the one that created the colossal wither. And you were killed in the process. But you were brought back to make it right. You were brought back with power that the ones that came before you didn't have. You could respawn. The ones that went to the end before you weren't prepared. They gave up. But you, nothing can stop you. I see the player you mean. I like this player. It played well. It did not give up.